generations try to understand other generations. You know, I try to understand my kids. Sometimes my kids try to understand me. There's a lot of conversations we've had on this show about trends and demographics and whatnot. We agree that a lot of our lives include stress. We've got somebody with us this morning, career coach, human capital advisor, speaker, and the author of 7 Fast Start Strategies for Starting Something New. Tracy Timm is with us. Good morning, Tracy. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Doing great. Thank you for having me.
What in the world do millennials have to be stressful about?
I know, it's hard to believe, right? It's like, don't you wish you were young again and you were carefree? And when I think about that, I'm 30 and I think about being 12 again, just not knowing what I was getting into. But there's a lot going on in the workforce now that I think is causing, quite honestly, burnout and stress to go up on the whole across every demographic. It just so happens that I think millennials are getting there faster and sooner and more frequently than previous generations. I think it's a larger workforce epidemic of being constantly tied to our phones and technologically in touch, of being working longer hours than we've ever worked before, and working in jobs that don't take advantage of who we are and what we naturally are gifted at. And that leads to boredom, which only exacerbates the problem.
Tracy, let me ask you this. Technically, I'm in the last year of the baby boomer. I was born in 1963. Okay. I got a couple of kids, 3 kids, 27, 26, and 15. I read a lot trying to understand the mistakes I made in parenting my kids. I've tried to analyze the way my parents raised me. There's a couple of terminologies coming about: helicopter parents and lawnmower parenting. Could some of the stress be the result of us trying to remove every negative influence in our kids' life, and they begin to believe the world does indeed center around them? In other words, we try to understand you folks try to understand us, but I debate some of my friends that are my age and are parented in the same fashion that I have, and we wonder how responsible we are for some of these issues the millennials are dealing with, because we so removed every negative influence, or try to remove every negative influence in their lives.
Sure. And I think, good for you, right, acknowledging that, like, we co-create reality with each other, right? And our kids are definitely a product of our parenting and our influence, and that just goes without saying sometimes. But, don't be so hard on yourself. Because it's not completely all about the parenting component. I mean, yes, I think there's a bit of that going on, but more importantly, we're just not societally preparing people for, quote unquote, the real world. And our system's not set up that way. High school doesn't necessarily prepare you for anything but college. College doesn't really prepare you for anything but either the subject matter you studied or just knowing how to learn. And then you get into the working world and you realize, holy crap, this is so different from all the boxes that I've been checking all along the way. And if you don't have a way or a person or a strategy or a plan or an influencer to help you figure out what you're naturally good at, what you love doing, what the world needs, and what you can get paid to do, then you're generally going to end up in one of these jobs that leads to higher burnout because you're chasing something different. You're chasing society's version of success. You're chasing the almighty 6 figures, or you're chasing that perfect, position or what have you. So we're getting this, you're exactly right. There's definitely this component of, our parents wanted the best for us possible. They wanted us to have the most options possible. And now we do have that, and there seems to be some bitterness about it. But there's also a lack of systemic help for young professionals to find their niche in the marketplace, and thus they're ending up where they think they should be as opposed to where they need to be to take advantage of who they are and what their unique, I think, value add is in their career.
One of the most interesting pieces of polling that I've seen recently is Pew Research, and they asked, the baby boomers, the Generation Xers, the millennials, to give the 3 or 4 or 5 most important things that they believe create wealth and happiness and sustainability in the workforce. And work ethic was number 1 amongst the baby boomers. It was not in the top 5 of millennials. Do you folks or do millennials look at work in a different way than we did in our generation? I mean, we were just, work ethic has to be important. It has to be the most important thing. If you don't have a work ethic, you're going to end up, homeless under a bridge somewhere. And it was almost instilled upon us in a non-diplomatic way. When I look at those numbers and I say, okay, the baby boomers say work ethic is the most important ingredient to be successful in the workplace, and the millennials believe it's not as important. What is the contrast there?
That's I'd love to read that particular study. I haven't seen that myself, but it sounds fascinating. So I don't think that necessarily work ethic is not even on their radar, because I'll tell you, I work primarily with young professionals, and every single one of them says, if I loved what I did, I would work twice as much. I would work twice as hard. There's just not a whole lot of incentive for them to continue to churn through these jobs that just aren't fulfilling in any way, and not in like a I want to be a starving artist sense. They all want to be successful, but they don't want to sacrifice their mental and physical health anymore to achieve that level of success. And they're asking for something more, and they're asking for something different. And the big difference is personal and professional fulfillment, doing what they do every single day. And I think that, as you know, right, when you love something and you're so engaged in it, you've never worked harder or longer in your life. And that's what they're looking for. And they're no longer going to just settle for that job that they know is going to churn through every bit of their energy for 2 years just so they can get to the next step, which is going to do the exact same thing, and so on and so forth. When, to your point, our parents created a scenario where we could have more and do life differently, and now they're just testing that out. That's how I see this kind of going down, especially with the clients that I work with today.
Last question is not so much a question as a chance to promote. Tell us about your book,
Sure.
Seven Fast Start Strategies for Starting Something New. What is the book about, and how can people get their hands on it?
Yeah, absolutely. TracyTimm.com is the easiest way to go and find that. But it was really born out of the idea that if you are in this sort of state where you've, gotten yourself into a high burnout, high pressure type of situation, and you want to leave and you want to start something different, what are the small steps that you can take to start doing that now and do it in a healthy and a way that has a plan? And then we've actually turned that into now an entire digital program. It's called the Nth Degree Career Academy, where we take young professionals from stuck to unstoppable. We help them figure out what's getting in their way and what's keeping them from progressing in their career in a sustainable and healthy way, and allow them to really tap into what it is that they would love to be doing that I think, quite honestly, would solve a lot of the burnout problem and would lead them to working even harder and even more passionately on what they do every single day.
Tracy, very interesting. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you so much. Have a good one.